I'm more motivated to put more time into conversation when I see people's faces, because then you have a feeling that, hey, we're in it together, right? And I'm talking about a meetup organized through Zoom, but you happen to be maybe speaking more than others, but you see people's faces. And then I'm motivated to be as brief as possible so that we can have a conversation. I'm not motivated to do that if I don't see people.
This is DevOps Paradox, episode number 166. Are in-person events dead? Welcome to DevOps Paradox. This is a podcast about random stuff in which we, Darren and Victor, pretend we know what we're talking about. Most of the time, we mask our ignorance by putting the word DevOps everywhere we can and mix it with random buzzwords like Kubernetes, serverless, CI/CD, team productivity, islands of happiness, and other fancy expressions that make us sound like we know what we're doing. Occasionally, we invite guests who do know something, but we do not do that often since they might make us look incompetent. The truth is out there, and there is no way we are going to find it. P.S. It's Darren reading this text and feeling embarrassed that Victor made me do it. Here are your hosts, Darren Pope and Victor Farsi. In the last episode, we were talking about Victor's trip to KubeCon EU. We actually didn't talk about this. You got in a car and drove to Valencia because...
Yes,
that's
because I can.
Because you can.
3 hours, yes.
Yeah. And you don't want to fly for 3 hours or for a 3-hour trip.
3-4 hours would be my limit. Anything beyond, above that, I'm flying.
At the end of the episode, we're asking the question, are in-person events dead? Now, obviously based on KubeCon EU having about 7,500 people, we can say that they're probably not dead. Maybe they're more zombie-like.
I think that they're going to go close to what they were before COVID.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. I think that we had a period, I feel, and this is personal feeling, I cannot back it with numbers. I think that during COVID, we had, a year or 2 years of experimenting with more focus on online events. To be honest, I don't think that I attended a truly successful online event. I think that the number of people, I would expect an online event to see more people than what we had pre-COVID in kind of on-site events. I don't think that that's happening. And I'm kind of very skeptical about online events, to be honest. Even though probably the logic would dictate opposite.
Well, let me position something here for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Robin Moffat is? Have you heard the name?
No idea.
Okay. He's a developer advocate at Confluent. And back in April of 2022, he did a blog post that was titled, Hanging Up My Boarding Passes and My Jetlag for Now. And he's made the decision based on numbers of factors that he's just not going to be going to conferences anymore. He's not seeing as much value out of a conference being a developer advocate. Now, it doesn't mean he doesn't go to any, but he's going to be very selective in the ones that he's going to versus being on a plane and going to 5 meetups a week.
Yeah, so I do agree with that. I'm not even sure about that. So let me try to answer with the question. What is the purpose of an event? Ignore now conference, let's say. Ignore now whether it's in person or online. Why do people go to any type, a conference in any form, whatever the form is?
I would say to hang out with people. And secondarily, maybe learn something.
Exactly. It's kind of a combination of things, I would say, right? First, you have a dedicated time to learning, right? Which you don't have when you're at home, usually, right? So you have dedicated days. Say those 3 days are only dedicated to that, right? I think that's the first thing, very important one. There are sessions in which you can learn, but that's also combined with being able to ask questions, to chat with people, to socialize. So it's learning in different forms, let's say, right? Primarily it's learning for most people. I mean, you and me are special because kind of it's part of our jobs and things like that. But for majority of people, learning, but the key is through different forms, socializing sessions, attending stuff and things like that. Right now, the question I have, assuming that we are more or less that's why people go to conferences, how much that is viable in an online conference?
I think it's very low. And I want to re-clarify what I said after hearing you talk. I think the primary reason people want to hang out with other people that have similar interest to what they have, because they're coming around this conference, this meeting, this event, because it's about a thing, right? So it's not just to hang out with people, because you can go to Walmart and hang out with people. Probably not what you want to do in general.
Yep.
But I'm showing up here. I think to answer the question you just posed, what was the question you just posed? I should have listened to myself.
How much those aspirations or those things are happening in online conferences?
Correct. So here's where I think online conferences have gone semi-wrong. And of course, during the pandemic, there were other things that you could and could not do, depending on where you lived. I think if you could have a mix of what an in-person gives you and what the fully virtual gives you, meaning, can I get together 5, 6, 10 of my closest friends that have the same thing, and let's get together and we watch it as a group. We build our own little in-person, because this model has been used in a lot of places. There will be a conference going on. There may be 500, 1,000, 2,000 people there locally, but then it's being simulcast to numerous other locations that have anywhere from 25 to 100 to 200 people in each of those locations, right? So it's sort of a hub and spoke model to where you're bringing people together in these locations. And then if you need to be by yourself, then you can be by yourself. I think it's that middle solution that hasn't happened yet. And I think that's how virtual could become a little better. Like a meetup. I went to a Java users group meetup that was based out of New York City. I'm in North Carolina. I am not going to get in my car and drive 12 hours to go to New York City to go to the Java users group. But I'm willing to go online on a Zoom meeting and spend 2 hours. Right? Because that's a small group versus I would not log on and watch KubeCon on a Zoom meeting. I just wouldn't.
I'm sure that there is a formula that can make actually online something replace and be much more effective and better than in-person conferences. I'm sure that there is something lurking there. However, what I'm also certain is that when you change the technology, when you change the medium of something, you cannot just pretend that you're now going to do the same, but in a different place. And that's the problem. And that's why I'm saying that I don't believe that online conferences are a thing. And what I really want to say in the current form, because that would be the same thing. Let's say that a long time ago, some people still do. You turn on the telly and you watch television, like live television, right? When I say live, it can be movie, but it starts at 8:00 type of schedule, right? Now, and that's great. We all did that. Now, does that formula work with internet? No, it doesn't. You don't have live television on internet. I mean, for some special things, like maybe a soccer match or a football match or whatever, yeah, why not? But in general, television had to reinvent itself to leverage the benefits of internet, right? And that's how we got Netflixes of the world, right? Now, what is happening with conferences is that what I see is basically the same formula that is used for in-person conferences is replicated for online conferences. And I think that they just missed opportunity, kind of. Why? I mean, very often when you see the interfaces as a user of online conferences, the graphics are even making it look like it's a real, usually there is a drawing of different rooms, and then you click on that room and then you go to the session, kind of like it's as if somebody is intentionally trying to make it be the same as in-person conference. And I think that that's wrong. So unless somebody figures out how to leverage the benefits of being online and reinvent it, I'm skeptical. I would rather be on a Zoom meeting with people than go to a random conference that says at 3:00 this afternoon, there will be this talk from this person, which was recorded a month ago. Kind of like, why? Why would I listen to that person, playback of that person at 3:00? When maybe actually it suits me to see it 3 days later because, I don't know, I have more time, let's say. Right? So I feel that online conferences are, on one hand, replicating the in-person conferences and then making it worse. Recording. Why record it talk? Where's the conversation going? Who is going to ask? How do you expect people to ask questions during a recorded talk? Am I being too negative now? Maybe.
No, that's my job. So I understand the reasons why you do a pre-record, right? Bad internet, whatever, right? So, but let's set those aside for just a moment, and let's see if we can make a suggestion. If it is going to be pre-recorded, and again, nothing against pre-recorded. We both do pre-recorded stuff all the time. But why not give the attendees a week before said date or dates, and you go ahead and post all the videos? Because I'm going to go through, it's like, oh, I want to see this. Great. I've got a week to watch it. And I know then at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, Victor's going to be in the room, quote unquote. And now we can ask questions. This is a basic tenet of education. This is where most education systems get it wrong. They go into class, they learn, and they go at home where they're struggling with the homework. Let's flip it. Let me watch the lecture at home, and then let me go into the classroom where I can get help.
Man, I don't know whether you came up with that or you saw it somewhere, but
no,
to
it's
me,
not
for
me.
example, that sounds brilliant. I do that. I sign up immediately. So kind of to have a conference day that is almost completely focused on Q&A, on discussions, on conversations. Doesn't even have to be Q&A, discussions, conversations, live communication. And you give in advance material that can foster that communication, that Q&A, stuff like that. It's brilliant. To me, that alone sounds much better than the majority of current conferences. I love it.
I'm not signing up to do that, by the way. I don't have time.
No, because, I do a lot of 1 hour conversations, demos, talks, whatever, sometimes with individuals, sometimes with meetup groups, sometimes with companies. And to me, that always ends up feeling so much better than a conference, because those smaller type of groups tend to end up with actually real Q&A, real questions, real conversation. And that's what I'm missing in online conferences. I rarely, now this might be me because I might be extremely boring, right? Or uninteresting subject, but I don't see many conversations, many Q&As in online conferences. And I'm not now talking only about me. I see kind of the threads. There is hardly any conversation going on right now. And going back to like KubeCon, I already stated I didn't attend the talk, but I know from other people who did attend talks or give talks. After talk, normally a bunch of people kind of like, the speaker gets off the stage and a bunch of people come and kind of start chatting and discussing that thing. And that's the part I like. That's the part I really, really like. Because that means that you actually, as a speaker, it is, to me, very depressing giving a talk and not knowing whether there is any interest in it. If there are no questions and I cannot see people's faces, then I get a bit depressed. kind of, if somebody would actually make, here's another suggestion, kind of, instead of having, in online conference, you do the talk, recorded or live, whatever, and then you have text Q&A, put people that are asking questions, put them on a screen. I want to see the face of a person asking the question. It helps me a lot. Then you have kind of, hey, I did not understand fully your question, and then 15 minutes later, that person might clarify it, right? And by that time, it's already over. So yeah, put attendees on a screen. I mean, not mandatory, right? But kind of whomever wants to.
Or at least give them, if they want to just be text, that's great. If they want to be just audio, that's fine. If they want to be audio and video, that's fine too. Where do they feel most comfortable? I'm wondering if you were to submit a talk to a conference and you did a fast one and you say, this is going to be a Q&A, but in order to come to the Q&A, you need to watch this video beforehand. I wonder if you can actually pull that off.
Man, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that no, this is a promise. I'm going to do that. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Because you could, so let's play this out in your day job. This isn't so much a conference, but for a meetup, you could easily do this. Right? It's like, hey, I'm going to be at this meetup. Go and watch this before the meetup. Because we'll spend about 5 minutes recapping it. But you're going to need to know the information from this 20-minute video for us to have a conversation on this date.
But that's, even if that might be one of the differences why I feel that I enjoy more, and people as well, kind of meetups online, I'm talking, is I don't know whether that's only me, but I tend actually to have much shorter talks in meetups than in conferences, to leave as much time for conversation. But kind of, I'm more motivated to put more time into conversation when I see people's faces, because then kind of you have a feeling that, hey, we're in it together, right? And I'm talking about a meetup organized through Zoom, right? But you happen to be maybe speaking more than others, but you see people's faces. And then I'm motivated to be as brief as possible so that we can have a conversation. I'm not motivated to do that if I don't see people.
I wonder if most speakers are motivated that way. If they're just what I will call a deck monkey, basically, here's the deck that was provided by marketing, and I just need to speak to this deck.
I mean, look at it this way. We do this podcast, right? This is audio-only podcast for the listeners. But when we record it, no matter whether it's only you and me or we have guests, we always have video turned on. Even though we don't need it. I mean, effectively for the end result. Why do we do that? Why do we see each other when we're recording audio-only podcast?
It's for body cues. I can tell Victor to shut up by putting up an X sign. I've got other things that I can do with video. Now, I am the worst on video. As Victor, if you were watching the video right now that we're seeing each other on, Victor, how bright am I right now? Maybe 3%.
You're like in a cave, man.
Because it's still dark. And all the light bulbs in my room are blown out. So I have one light that's over in a corner that's sort of bouncing the room.
But
so
doesn't matter. I still feel more comfortable speaking to you when I see you, even though it's very dark and you look spooky and all that stuff. And we do this a lot. Now, if for our speakers, for guests who might be doing this less often than we do, some never, I guarantee you that they feel infinitely more comfortable.
Right, because they've video. Probably been on Zoom. So at least the platform that we use is not Zoom. But the metaphor should carry from wherever they're at. So at least they see somebody. In fact, we've had some guests say that's like, oh, yeah, I need to be able to see you in order to have a conversation, or some variant of that. Whereas because of my training, I'm used, coming from a radio background, I'm used to not seeing people. Right? So I've trained myself over the years. Yeah, I've trained myself to listen very closely. Basically, I was doing memojis in my head before memojis was a thing. I just see people head bouncing. This is an interesting conversation we're having because now if you could recreate how you do talks, not just meetups. Now, obviously conferences are conferences and whatever, right? That's usually a more marketing thing than anything else. Meetups are interesting because usually it's a small group. Most meetups are small. Sub 100 easily and usually sub 20.
And it's usually Zoom-like.
And usually Zoom-like.
Meaning that you see everybody.
You can see everybody. You're interacting in real time. Let's dive into your day job for just a second. So demos. It's the same model as the meetup, right? Could you flip it around and say, here's the video. Let's come together and meet and we'll have a conversation about the video.
Let's do that.
What do you think? No, but can you see yourself doing that? That's what I'm asking.
I think actually it would, yeah. I mean, it's instead of basically, we've been doing AMA except the last week, but instead of AMA kind of that is very broad and anything, it could be around a video that is presented. I mean, about the subject that is presented through a video before.
I'm taking us down a path. You're not following me, but that's okay. Because you don't see it, and I'm just now beginning to see it.
Because you're
Let's
dark.
take it. Well, yes, you can.
I'm not getting the cues, man.
Let's take it one step further. We're talking about the premise was are in-person events dead? We know that return to office, depending on where you're at, is in various forms of state. But here's something else I want to posit for. This is something that
I would
anybody
challenge
can do.
that. I don't think that events are dead, and I don't think that going to the office is dead either.
No, I don't think so either. I think there's all shades of gray here. But if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I don't do meetups, I don't do conferences, I'm just sitting over here being a code person and writing code. How many meetings do you go to that you thought this could have been an email? Okay, well, all of us do.
A lot. I mean, everybody, I guess.
But let's back it up there. For a lot of people, you don't want to present live. You don't want to do demo day, right? That's as a developer, demo days are not abnormal. Why not go ahead and just record your demo and it's like, hey, here's the suite of demos for this sprint that we're doing. There's 5 demos. And then at this time, we're going to get together and discuss them as necessary. Because then, if there's anything to discuss, you've got a window to discuss. And if you don't need to discuss, you get time back to code more.
So maybe actually there could be a combination of the 3. Now, when I think about it, if you give me, here's a demo, here's material or something, I might not read it, watch it, stuff like that before the D-Day, right? Because, you have your schedule, I have my schedule. It's very, what you're suggesting is very efficient, but it's also very easy to skip things because there are more important things to do always. So I would be still very much in favor of, yes, first of all, send me the material in advance. I think that's absolutely great. And then when the day comes, do a short version of that.
And that's what we were talking about earlier is there's going to be a 5-minute at the top. Well, let's say your video was 30 minutes. Let's say your short version of that's going to be 10 to 12 minutes.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
And then you still have 45 minutes if it's an hour block to have conversation.
Exactly. So short version, so that if you haven't had time to go through it, you can get the gist of it, right? Not in detail.
You can get 80% of it.
Yeah.
Right? You get the 80%. If you want all the details, then you have the video. Even if you didn't watch it before, now you can go watch it after. And
exactly,
now you've had context to where you can... Just thinking that people are going to show up for your 45-minute session in a room and that they're going to be able to take it and make it actionable, you're deceiving yourself.
Because I think that the key there is the question, do I have something better or more important to do at that time? And that's why in-person conferences are important, because when it's in-person conference, I have a week dedicated to that, or a day, or whatever the time is, right? I'm not actually in my office. And the same goes for online. If I will go to online conference and attend the session at specific time and drop whatever else I might be doing, only and almost exclusively if I know that I'm getting value from that I cannot get on my own terms or any other time. That's why I'm insisting on conversations. Kind of, if you say, hey, outside of maybe this 10 minutes demo, right? Kind of, this is the time you can actually have a conversation with Kelsey Hightower, right? I'm going to go. If you say, this is the time that you can actually watch a video of Kelsey Hightower just as any other time in the world, then I'm not likely to go, because, there is life, other tasks that I might need to do at that precise time. So it needs to be something unique that tells you, hey, you need to be here because it's happening only at that moment, right? Like, same reason, like, why I haven't seen statistics, but I'm pretty sure that what I'm going to say is true, that most of the things that people watch live on telly are sports events, right? Because it's happening right now. You can watch it later, yeah, but you're kind of, sports are almost like interacting. You yell at the coach for giving a red card to somebody, because kind of like you're immersed in that moment. I bet that most people who are interested in sport don't watch it next week.
No,
right?
They might rewatch it just because it was a great game, but they're not watching it for the first time. They are not going to, like, there's some games that I will sometimes watch because I am an NBA fan. I will make sure that I am not looking online. I'm trying to stay buffered, but within 24 hours, I'm going to watch it. But anything longer than that, I'm not going to do it. Actually, sports is a good example of what I was talking about earlier. People can go to the event and be live in the arena in the stadium. At the complete opposite end of that is the game is broadcast and you can watch it from the comfort of your own home. But in the middle is a thing called a pub.
I was getting there, yes.
Right? And that's where a group of friends, you may or may not be in that city. I'm near Charlotte, so there's the Charlotte Hornets, there's the Carolina Panthers, there's other teams here. I could drive to get to an event. Exactly. But just down the street, for every Hornets game, there's always a group of people that get together to watch the game at the restaurant. There's not a ton of people there. There's 15, 20 people there. But it's 15 or 20 people that are there for a common purpose.
Exactly. I'm guessing it's something to do with human interaction.
Part of it, yeah. But we're all cheering for the same thing.
Exactly, but there's that's kind of that interaction that's like you're all cheering, which is probably much more engaging than you sitting in a sofa cheering at the television.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying that
Absolutely.
Everybody goes to a pub, but I'm not a sports fan, but I imagine that if I would be, I would enjoy it much more in a pub. Let's say that I cannot go to the real event, right? But
yeah. And you may not want to go to the real event because maybe that's just too many people for you, right? It's like, and plus the food is way expensive versus a restaurant, which is still expensive, but at least it's, you're not having to, and the bathrooms are probably much cleaner too.
So less expensive, better food with cleaner bathrooms.
Yeah. And you're probably not having to pay for parking, right? All those things add up. So I think that's where the conferences that are doing online have messed up. They're not filling that middle pub audience, or they're not marketing it in such a way to like get your friends together and you'll get this extra. We'll send you a box of swag.
Yeah.
That's specific to these for the pubs, I guess, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah, it's very simple. You need to give me a reason. There are things, in general speaking, that you want to attend live. There are things that you want to attend. I mean, at a specific moment. There are things that you might want to attend or see or watch or hear at any time that is convenient to you. You need to choose which one are you doing of the two, and then make it appealing to be that, right? Hey, if it's appealing to watch it anytime, then it's a YouTube video. It's not a conference. If it's a conference, then you need to give me a reason to be there at specific time.
So what do you think? Are you going to give up on online conferences like Victor has? He hasn't, but sort of has. Are you only going to go to in-person events where you may have to wear a mask, where you may not have to wear a mask, where you might have to fly, you might have to, who knows? Or are you just going to sit at home and watch Netflix? Hop over to the Slack workspace, check in the podcast channel, and leave us a note there. We hope this episode was helpful to you. If you want to discuss it or ask a question, please reach out to us. Our contact information and a link to the Slack workspace are at devopsparadox.com/contact. If you subscribe through Apple Podcast, be sure to leave us a review there. That helps other people discover this podcast. Go sign up right now at devopsparadox.com to receive an email whenever we drop the latest episode. Thank you for listening to DevOps Paradox.